Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. A federal judge tosses indictments against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. The reason behind the judge's decision.
Russia says it doesn't support the revised peace plan drafted in Geneva yesterday. We have what the Kremlin is saying and how Ukraine is responding.
With China-Japan tensions rising, Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi speaks with President Trump for the first time since a dispute over Taiwan defense erupted with China.
And the Trump administration says crime in Memphis has dropped dramatically since the deployment of the Memphis Safe Task Force. Hear what AG Pam Bondi and Tennessee officials have to say.
Powerful tornado hits Harris County, Texas, damaging more than 100 homes.
And how to give yourself the gift of gratitude this Thanksgiving and the many benefits it brings. We're going to speak with a clinical psychologist for tips to make the day deeply rewarding.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Today is Tuesday, November 25th. You're watching NTD Good Morning. In today's top news, as China-Japan tensions continue to heat up, Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi spoke with President Trump today.
Yeah, NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on their phone call, the pair's first conversation since a dispute flared over Japan's comments on potentially defending Taiwan.
Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi said she spoke with Trump at his request.
I thanked him for sending me a copy of an American newspaper reporting his recent visit to Japan with his autograph, and valued America's initiative towards peace in Ukraine.
Takaichi described the call as another opportunity to reaffirm close cooperation between Japan and the United States.
President Trump said we are extremely close friends and happy to receive a phone call anytime.
China said Sunday that Japan crossed a red line after Takaichi suggested a Chinese attack on Taiwan could trigger a military response from Tokyo. A Japanese government spokesperson said Japan must firmly refute China's claims. Returning to the call, Takaichi said Trump briefed her on the latest in U.S.-China relations,
including last night's phone call between the two leaders. He also asked about the G20 summit, which I attended.
Takaichi was talking about the conversation Trump had with Chinese Communist leader Xi Jinping yesterday. Trump wrote on Truth Social that he discussed many topics with Xi, including the Russia-Ukraine conflict and fentanyl. Trump also said he had accepted Xi's invitation to visit Beijing in April, while Xi will make a state visit to the United States later in the year. Trump raised soybean and other farm product concerns with the communist leader as well. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins said yesterday the Trump administration expects to announce an aid package for U.S. farmers within 2 weeks, speaking on CNBC.
The president always said he would take care of the farmers. They have been with him since he came down the escalator just a few blocks from here in 2015 and began this next chapter.
U.S. farmers lost billions this year as top buyer China turned to Brazil and Argentina amid tense trade talks with Washington. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And Ukraine says it's coming under another intense wave of Russian missile and drone strikes as both sides hit targets across the border.
This comes amid talks for a peace plan.
Ukraine says Russia launched a massive overnight barrage, killing at least 6 people and hitting residential buildings and energy facilities.
Officials in Kyiv say multiple districts were struck with fires in high-rise buildings and a second wave of missiles triggering early morning sirens.
Russia says Ukraine also carried out deadly strikes, including attacks on the southern region of Rostov and on Russia's Black Sea port. 3 people were killed and several others injured.
Russia has responded to the latest Ukraine peace plan, the Kremlin saying the version of the plan is not acceptable, and Ukraine suggesting it won't cede any territory currently occupied by Russia. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar brings us more.
Peace plans for the conflict in Ukraine are developing fast. The United States and Ukraine say they've made progress on a revised peace proposal after talks in Geneva on Sunday. But the Kremlin doesn't support the revised plan.
We learned this morning about the European plan, which is completely unconstructive and not acceptable for us at first glance. Mr. Rubio announced that the U.S. side has been completely satisfied by the Geneva talks with the Ukrainians. But he also said that there were 26 points, so there were a lot of different speculations. It is unclear whom to believe.
The White House says the new framework strengthens protections for Ukraine and keeps its sovereignty non-negotiable. Kiev suggests it doesn't support a previous U.S. drafted plan, which would have included Ukraine ceding occupied territory.
Putin wants legal recognition for what he has stolen, to break the principle of territorial integrity and sovereignty. And that's the main problem.
Zelensky added that Ukraine will continue working with its partners like the US and European nations. The European Council president also says the bloc will keep on supporting Ukraine as peace talks are moving forward. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer weighed in as well on Monday.
Because the conflict in Ukraine has had a direct impact here in the United Kingdom. So progress, yes, more work to do, but we've all got our sleeves rolled up, ready to put in those hard yards, hopefully to get to the right outcome.
Other European leaders echoed that sentiment, saying they're planning to continue supporting Ukraine. And members of the European Union also held a special meeting on the peace plan on Monday during their visit to Angola. They were there to meet with African leaders for a 2-day summit aimed at increasing multilateral cooperation and trade.
1/3 of Africa's total trade is with Europe, and Africa exports to Europe more than twice as much as to China, for example.
The summit also seeking to improve EU relations with African nations, where China has sought increasing economic influence. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
The Trump administration has officially designated the Cartel of the Suns as a foreign terrorist organization. The designation increases pressure on the Venezuelan regime of Nicolas Maduro. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, has more on that story.
The Cartel of the Suns takes its name from the sun insignia that Venezuelan generals carry on their uniforms. According to the U.S. government, the cartel was formed by top Venezuelan officials and is led by Nicolás Maduro. The U.S. government now considers members of the Venezuelan regime to be members of a foreign terrorist organization.
Well, it brings a whole bunch of new options to the United States. And he is indicted and wanted for he's not a legitimately elected leader of Venezuela. Everybody knows that. To give options to the president to ultimately say our hemisphere will not be controlled by narco-terrorists. It will not be controlled by cartels. It will not be controlled by what illegitimate regimes try to push toward the American people.
The designation comes as the U.S. has the largest military buildup in the region since the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 60s. And as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, is meeting with military commanders in Puerto Rico. The Venezuelan regime has mobilized its military and militias in response to the U.S. military buildup and has become increasingly paranoid and accusing the U.S. of sabotaging oil infrastructure in the country.
¿Qué pasa porque cada quien defienda? Because each person must defend their space, the oil and gas facilities, defend them from the CIA. The CIA, who have slipped them a bill and said, go over there and damage the Venezuelan economy. That's the CIA's plan.
Congressional Republicans have backed the president's orders to strike narco-terrorists in the region. Over 80,000 Americans died last year due to illegal drugs.
If an invasion does take place down in Venezuela against Maduro, that would trigger a War Powers Act response by Congress. We would have 60 days, if the conflict is still ongoing, to determine whether a declaration of war is warranted or an authorized use of military force.
At least 7 major airlines have suspended flights to and from Venezuela over the weekend after the FAA warned of heightened military activity in and around Venezuelan airspace. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Thanks to Luis for that report. The Trump administration is also moving to designate certain chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood as foreign terrorist organizations. President Trump signed an executive order yesterday. The Muslim Brotherhood was founded in Egypt in 1928, and it has a transnational network with chapters across the Middle East, in Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt. In his order, Trump said that the Muslim Brotherhood engages in and supports violence that harms U.S. citizens and U.S. interests. The group has worked with Hamas and Hezbollah terror groups in the aftermath of the October 7th attacks on Israel. Trump said such activities threaten Americans as well as U.S. partners in the region. The president is asking the Secretary of State and the Treasury Secretary to begin the designation process. The move would bring sanctions against the Islamist group.
A federal judge has dismissed the indictments against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. She said the appointment of interim U.S. Attorney Lindsey Halligan was unlawful. NTD's Arlene Richards has that story.
Two of President Trump's adversaries, former FBI Director James Comey and New York State Attorney General Letitia James, shared a victory after a federal judge dismissed the indictments against them. Judge Cameron Curry, a South Carolina District Court judge who was selected to review the Virginia case, found that the appointment of interim U.S. Attorney Lindsey Halligan was invalid. She said the appointment was unlawful because Halligan wasn't working for the government at the time when she was appointed. Therefore, Attorney General Pam Bondi could not authorize her to present cases against Comey or James to a grand jury. Comey was charged with making false statements and obstruction in connection with his testimony to Congress in 2020. James was charged with mortgage fraud related to her purchase of a Virginia home and whether she lied to obtain favorable loan terms. 2 weeks ago, Judge Cameron openly expressed doubts about Halligan's appointment during a hearing on the matter. She then confirmed that Halligan was the sole government official to present both cases to the panel. Cameron said all actions flowing from Ms. Halligan's defective appointment, including the indictments against Comey and James, were unlawful exercises of executive power. The indictments were dismissed without prejudice, leaving open the possibility that the cases can be brought again, alleging the same conduct. However, the statute of limitations has already passed for Comey's case, which means the Justice Department can't bring the same charges against him. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the administration will appeal.
And it is our position that Lindsey Halligan is extremely qualified for this position, but more importantly, was legally appointed to it.
We'll be taking all available legal action, including an immediate appeal, to hold Letitia James and James Comey accountable for their unlawful conduct.
Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Comey reacted to the ruling in a video posted on Instagram, accusing President Trump of using the DOJ to target his political enemies.
Comey said he's innocent and, quote, not afraid.
Next, the Department of War has opened an investigation into Democratic Senator Mark Kelly. 6 lawmakers recently released a controversial video, and Kelly's the only one of them who falls under the department's jurisdiction.
In the video, the lawmakers urge members of the military to not follow illegal orders. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more.
I think what Senator Mark Kelly was actually trying to do was intimidate the 1.3 million active duty service members.
The Pentagon is investigating Democratic Senator Mark Kelly after he and a few other Democratic lawmakers released a video urging the military to defy illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
Kelly's accused of misconduct, and he's being singled out because he's the only one of the 6 lawmakers in this video that falls under the War Department's jurisdiction. The department said in a Monday statement that all service members are reminded that they have a legal obligation to obey lawful orders and that the orders are presumed to be lawful. A service member's personal philosophy does not justify or excuse the disobedience of an otherwise lawful order. The Pentagon also said it's illegal to interfere with the loyalty and morale of the armed forces. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth wrote in a subsequent post on X, "The video made by the seditious 6 was despicable, reckless, and false. Kelly's conduct brings discredit upon the armed forces and will be addressed appropriately." Kelly responded on social media touting his military accomplishments and adding that if this is meant to intimidate me and other members of Congress from doing our jobs and holding this administration accountable, it won't work. Kelly also referenced President Trump's recent comments on social media when this video came out. Trump wrote, "Seditious behavior punishable by death," and later saying,
"In the old days, if you said a thing like that, that was punishable by death."
Yeah, but you're not threatening them. A lot of people are interpreting there's a threat and there's security.
Well, I'm not threatening them, but I think they're in serious trouble.
The video released by the Democratic lawmakers didn't reference what orders might be potentially illegal. The key message coming from the administration is that all orders are lawful.
And not a single one of them, since they've been pressed, can point to a single illegal order that this administration has given down, because it does not exist.
As the investigation progresses, Senator Kelly may be recalled to active duty to face a court-martial or administrative punishment. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Thank you, Jack. Next, the Department of Justice is renewing its push to unseal grand jury transcripts from the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell cases under the newly enacted Epstein Files Transparency Act. Prosecutors say the law obligates them to release unclassified records by December 19th and are asking judges for expedited rulings.
The department says any release could be partially redacted to protect victims, but a federal judge has previously said anyone familiar with the evidence would, quote, learn next to nothing new and would come away feeling disappointed and misled.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. It's been more than 50 days since the Trump administration deployed the Memphis Safe Task Force, and officials say it's making a big difference.
At a news conference yesterday, Attorney General Pam Bondi, along with Tennessee officials, touted a significant drop in crime. Here's the details.
Memphis has spent years struggling with one of the highest violent crime rates in the nation, but leaders say a federal surge launched 2 months ago is producing dramatic results. Attorney General Pam Bondi says crime in the city has plummeted since President Trump ordered federal agencies to assist local law enforcement. Bondi says the new Memphis Safe Task Force, made up of more than 30 federal, state, and local agencies, is achieving results that would have been unthinkable just months ago.
The last 56 days that we have had this surge, compared to the same 56-day time period a year ago, shows murder is down 48% in just 56 days, sexual assault down 49%, robbery down 61%, overall serious crime down 45% here in Memphis.
Bondi says more than 3,000 arrests have been made and over 500 guns taken off the streets. The task force says one of the most significant outcomes, the recovery of over 120 missing or endangered children.
How remarkable is that, huh? 121 children and teens back home with their parents and guardians. No longer on the streets or in danger.
Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Scott Turner also announced a new hotline for residents in public housing, on which they can report criminals, illegal immigrants, sex offenders, human traffickers, and gang activity.
Protect your home. Protect your family. If you see it, if you hear about it, report it. And here's how. You can call 1-800-347-3735.
Tennessee Governor Bill Lee described what's happening as an example for the rest of the country.
Murder rates cut in half, and crime rates in Memphis at their lowest level in 20 years. This is an example of what can happen when people set aside all their differences and focus on the people of Memphis, Tennessee.
But not everyone supports the task force. Critics say it intimidates law-abiding Latinos and that poor planning has left courts and the local jail overwhelmed by the increase in arrests. Still, supporters insist that after years of rising crime, Memphis is finally seeing a positive shift. They say the mission now is to sustain it.
The White House is denying reports that the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, no longer exists. A Reuters report quoted the director of the Office of Personnel Management, Scott Cooper, as saying DOGE doesn't exist, with 8 months left before its official disbandment. In a post on X, Cooper disputed the Reuters headline that DOGE is non-existent and suggested it was misleading. The White House says its mission to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse across federal agencies continues. Cooper added that while DOGE may lack centralized leadership, its principles, deregulation, workforce reform, and efficiency remain active within government operations. DOGE previously included Elon Musk as its leader and was involved in high-profile actions, including closing USAID and terminating wasteful contracts. The task force is set to remain active through July 2026. It will continue updates on its projects, including nearly $2 billion in contracts that ended recently. And a powerful tornado has left more than 100 homes damaged in Harris County, Texas.
The tornado tore through the community outside Houston yesterday, spewing debris across entire neighborhoods.
Despite the devastation, officials say there have been no reported deaths or serious injuries. Drone footage shows rooftops torn away and debris blocking roads across the storm-stricken communities.
Emergency workers describe trees snapping like toothpicks and the roof and back wall being ripped off an emergency services maintenance building. First responders continued rescue and recovery efforts while residents were urged to avoid travel and amid down power lines and widespread debris. The National Weather Service issued a tornado watch across southern Texas until late last night as storms swept across the region.
Stay safe out there. Our thoughts are with everyone affected. Now, today is the start of the Thanksgiving travel period. Gas Buddy says drivers should see reasonable prices at the pump.
That's right, and the FAA says air travelers should benefit from air traffic control operations recovering from the government shutdown. Here's a look at what else might be in store for holiday travelers.
Thanksgiving travel is taking off. AAA forecasts a record-setting holiday period between today and Monday. AAA projects almost 82 million people will venture at least 50 miles from home. That would be last year's record. The association predicts almost 90% of people will drive, about 6 million will fly, and less than half that will choose other transportation. The FAA expects the 2025 Thanksgiving holiday period to be the busiest for air travel in 15 years, with today projected to have the most flights and
Thanksgiving week and Christmas week as well typically do see higher disruption rates.
Some issues are already coming up. The FAA says a problem with an air traffic control frequency caused a ground stop in Dallas yesterday. Near Seattle, a pipeline leak is limiting jet fuel supplies.
Her flight got rerouted and delayed. She has to take a stop in Alaska because of the fuel line thing. She thought it was very inconvenient. I mean, she has to be on a flight for an extra 6 hours or something.
As air travelers plan for possible disruptions,
come fly with me, let's fly away.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is trying to restore courtesy and class to air travel with this new campaign.
Let's bring civility and manners back. Ask yourself, are you helping a pregnant woman put her bag in the overhead bin? Are you dressing with respect? Are you keeping control of your children? The golden age of travel begins with you.
And right on cue, we're joined by Jen Ruiz, travel blogger, author, and Instagram travel content creator at Jen on a Jet Plane, for tips, tricks, and advice for holiday travel. Jen, thanks for joining us. Many people have already begun the annual Thanksgiving homecoming pilgrimage. You heard about the, quote, the golden age of travel. So what's your reaction to Secretary Duffy's announcement?
Well, I think it's going to be challenging to experience that golden age during the most crowded time to travel, right? I think that there is a difference between the way that travel used to be, which included spacious seats, luxurious pre-boarding and in-flight experiences. And I think now people feel stressed a little bit when they're traveling because of all that it entails. And so hopefully some of the tips we share today will help them navigate that easier.
That's great. Let's jump in then. So what advice do you have for those who have to get on a plane for Thanksgiving?
Well, first, you might want to see if your local airport is actually experimenting with some of the new real ID or mobile ID identification. Normally, you would have to carry that in person, your license, maybe shift through your bag to get that out. But now you can actually have it on your mobile device, upload it to your Apple Wallet at select airports. Similarly, select airports have advanced reservation systems. So that might be a great way to actually skip the line if you can make a reservation ahead of time to go through TSA PreCheck.
Those are great tips. What other things do you have for dealing with crowded spaces in tight corners for getting through, especially if you're traveling with kids or the elderly?
Sure. Well, it is going to be a challenging airport scenario, right, where you're going to have lots of crowds. So first things first, you want to make sure if you're checking luggage, which I don't recommend, that you get there with plenty of time, because luggage has to be checked usually at least 45 minutes ahead of your departure so that it has time to be loaded onto the plane. And so you don't want to get there without enough time, find that there's a really long line, and that actually delays and stresses you further. Also, in the airport, talking about about select airports and their new features, we have new things like sensory rooms where you can go to have, if you are somebody who is overwhelmed easily by airports, or maybe you're traveling with a neurodivergent child. These are great spaces that are available now more and more throughout the U.S. to provide you a reprieve from the crowds of the airport and have more of a silent space where you can relax, and beanbag chairs and really colorful exhibits. You also have perhaps some therapy animals that are available at certain airports, dogs to llamas. So we have lots of different options in that regard, and also classes. Try to look for maybe a yoga class or a stretching section, or somewhere where you can just go and take a deep breath and actually not be in the hustle and bustle of it all.
I've never seen a llama at an airport, but I certainly would like to. And when you mentioned, don't check your bags, I immediately thought of Meet the Parents, where Ben Stiller is forced to check his bag, and then the father-in-law is giving him guff because, of course, his daughter checked her bag, right? Now, another big part, especially for long travels, you got to eat, you got to drink. So what do you recommend for people who may have to, travel entirely across the country? It could be a 10-hour travel day.
Absolutely. Well, and that also brings me to another point I wanted to bring up regarding gifts, because a lot of people end up traveling with food maybe as gifts. Once I remember bringing back cheese from Amsterdam, and definitely it got stopped for additional verification as to what it is, because it's just like a block item. So number one, be careful if you're wrapping any gifts or bringing anything already pre-wrapped, because they may have to open that if they're checking it further. So try to maybe bring your wrapping paper separate. And if you are bringing food on board, generally you can, right? You want to avoid kind of odorous objects, but you can bring anything that's not obviously liquid. So you can bring maybe your own snacks, your own trail mix, your own like chew bars or things like that. And then they do offer meals at the airport. And if you're somebody that's trying to avoid that rush as well, certain airports have a system where you can actually order through the app, have your meal delivered to your gate or wherever you are, or maybe order in advance for pickup, so you can skip a long line of people that are waiting to get, Burger King or whatever other food is available at the airport, and you can actually just order it on the app and go and pick it up straight from the counter.
That's a great move. I've definitely enjoyed skipping the line with pickup before, and you feel like you went to Vegas and won in that instance. It's great. Exactly. Now, look, I know you're Jen on a jet plane, but I do want to talk about, for those who are driving potentially long distances in big metro areas, New York, LA, Chicago, DC, where the traffic, if you mistime it, it could be, soul crushing.
Absolutely. And so first things first, you definitely want to make sure before you hit the road that your car is in top condition, right? You want to make sure that the tires and the tire pressure have been checked. You want to make sure maybe you have a fix-a-flat with you if for any reason you might need that. Maybe make sure that your oil change is done. Make sure that your gas is topped off. And this will just give you a head start so that you don't have to change and do maintenance as much as you're driving, and can just get a good stretch in. The earlier you can leave, the better, right? If you can wake up early, it's not ideal, but same with flights where you have the least chance of getting delayed first thing in the morning. When you're hitting the road, there's less people there, at 5 a.m. than there will be at 10 a.m. And so definitely that midday period starting around like 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. is when you're going to see the most traffic on the road. So the earlier in the week that you can leave and the earlier in the day, the better. If you're someone that can drive at night, you can also do that as well. But definitely take your safety into consideration and utilize all the different devices available to you, like Waze, to maybe check and see what delays might be coming up.
Those are sage words of wisdom from Jen Ruiz. Check her out on Instagram at Jen on a Jet Plane. Thanks for joining us, Jen. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Likewise.
Great advice there. And I've got to say, that golden age that Secretary Duffy spoke of is going to be even more priceless under those extra compressed and stressful situations. If you can manage to think of the other travelers around you, that's even more priceless.
It works in two ways, because it's obviously going back to a more genteel time, but it's also using the golden rule. And he's, I think, also saying, golden rule applies in every situation, but especially in tight quarters where you got a lot of people
and
being
mass
considerate.
Transit. We're all in this together. All right.
Right.
Okay, now next, President Trump signing an executive order launching the Genesis mission.
That's right. The national effort will use artificial intelligence to transform how scientific research is conducted to accelerate the speed of scientific discovery.
Now, this mission directs the Secretary of Energy to unite the national laboratory's top scientists, supercomputers, and vast data into a single cooperative research system. The order instructs the Department of Energy to create a closed-loop AI experimentation platform to generate scientific foundation models and power robotic labs.
The White House says priority areas include biotech, critical materials, nuclear fission and fusion, space exploration, quantum science, and advanced semiconductors. Officials say the efforts aim to reverse stalled scientific progress despite rising research budgets.
And Amazon Web Services announced yesterday it will build and deploy dedicated AI and high-performance computing systems for the U.S. government, a first for the company. AWS says it will invest up to $50 billion starting in 2026 to expand AI and supercomputing resources for federal agencies. Still to come, amid a high-level CCP officials visit overseas, a group of peaceful protesters were harassed and attacked. Several countries are spotlighting the Chinese Communist Party's human rights abuses. We've got that and much more up ahead. Welcome back. If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines. Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi spoke with President Trump today, their first call since tensions rose over her comments on possibly defending Taiwan. Takaichi said Trump requested the conversation and reaffirmed their close cooperation. Trump spoke with China's Xi Jinping yesterday, where he discussed Ukraine, fentanyl, and farm trade issues. Trump also accepted Xi's invitation to visit Beijing next April.
Federal judge has dismissed the indictments against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James, finding the appointment of interim U.S. Attorney Lindsey Halligan to be unlawful. The indictments were dismissed without prejudice, meaning the cases could be brought back. However, the statute of limitations has already passed for Comey's case, barring the Justice Department from bringing the same charges against him. Comey reacted to the ruling, saying he's innocent and, quote, not afraid. The DOJ says it will appeal the ruling.
The Trump administration says a crime-fighting task force is producing dramatic results in Memphis. Attorney General Bondi reports murders down nearly 50% and more than 3,000 arrests. Officials say one of the biggest successes is rescuing over 100 missing or endangered children.
And a powerful tornado has damaged more than 100 homes in Harris County, Texas. The storm tore through yesterday, scattering debris across entire neighborhoods despite the destruction. Officials say there are no reports of deaths or serious injuries. Drone footage shows roofs ripped off and roads blocked by debris.
The U.S. recently joined several other nations to push for an end to human rights violations in China. Just days later, pro-CCP groups harassed peaceful protesters in Australia. NTD's Melina Wisecup has more. Melina, good to have you with us this morning. First, tell us about this new push for the UN to spotlight human rights.
Right, Steph. So 15 countries, including the U.S., Australia, Japan, Ukraine, the United Kingdom, and a few others, have signed onto a statement calling for the UN, a statement to the UN calling for the immediate release of people who the CCP has illegally detained inside of China for exercising their fundamental freedom of faith. In this statement, the countries raised concerns that, quote, ethnic and religious minority groups, particularly Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities, Christians, Tibetans, Falun Gong practitioners, and others have faced targeted repression, including through separation of children from their families and boarding schools, torture, and the destruction of cultural heritage. Now, the countries in this statement are pressing the United Nations to hold the CCP accountable in a meaningful way to combat these human rights issues. Now, Steph, this comes just 1 week after the Chinese Communist Party illegally arrested nearly 20 leaders of Zion Church, one of the largest underground Christian churches inside of China. One of those leaders, Erza Jin, the church's founder, his daughter last week testified to lawmakers. Listen to what she had to say during that testimony.
I'm sometimes indeed fearful. After all, I know that I seek to expose and hold account the second most powerful country in the world. Yet as a Christian, I believe that we are asked to take courage and speak truth, and that God who created heaven and earth will stand by our side.
So she's urging U.S. leaders to do more to get prisoners of conscience like her father, who are jailed inside of China, freed, Steph.
Yeah, powerful words there, Melina. Let's talk for a moment about Australia. This was one country that joined on this statement to push for human rights in China. A concerning incident took place there yesterday during a peaceful protest against the CCP's human rights abuses. Tell us what happened.
So a top CCP leader by the name of Zhao Leiji is visiting Australia right now. Zhao was the subject of a push for sanctions, actually, here in the United States just last month due to human rights issues. Because of his high rank, he plays a key role in the persecution of Falun Gong, which is a meditation discipline centered on aligning oneself to truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. So amid Zhao's visit to Australia, a group of Falun Gong practitioners inside of Australia peacefully protested, trying to call attention to this widespread persecution that he's engaged with, including forcibly removing organs from prisoners of conscience. So those protesters were holding banners shedding light on this issue, and some of those banners had words written that truthfulness, compassion, forbearance is good. During this protest, a group of pro-Chinese Communist Party members by the name of Fuqing Association tried to block these banners from being seen and harass those protesters. One of those protesters, Sao Juxing, had his shirt ripped open by one of the members of that pro-CCP group. Another protester was actually hit in the head. A member of that group used a flagpole to strike her head and pushed her away, trying to, get them offside and stop them from shedding light on this persecution. Now, this isn't a one-off incident, Steph. It's not just happening in Australia. Anywhere that Falun Gong has a presence, which is throughout much of the world, there are pro-CCP groups directed to try to harass and threaten them from trying to stop and expose the CCP's suppression of this practice, even outside of China's borders. Now, this was also a key focus in last week's hearing on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers are actively working to try to expose and stop the CCP's transnational repression here in the U.S. and abroad, Steph.
Yeah, important updates. Thank you so much for your report this morning, Melina.
Coming up, it's a Thanksgiving tradition at the White House. Two turkeys named Gobble and Waddle are all set to receive a presidential pardon from President Trump.
Also, this Thanksgiving, we're looking at the art of receiving life's blessings. Through the highs and lows and everywhere in between, there's always something to be grateful for. Stay tuned for that.
And as we just heard from Louise, the escalating tensions with Venezuela and the designation of the Cartel de los Soles as a terrorist organization is creating increased tensions. Joining us now for analysis is Rick De La Torre, CEO and founder of Strategy, as well as a retired CIA senior operations officer. Rick, thank you for joining us. How do you grade where things are presently with Venezuela, with both sides seeming to escalate?
Right. So it seems that the U.S. military and Venezuela is headed for a confrontation of some sort. The designation of Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization really provides the administration access to an entirely new tool set that in the past has only been reserved for the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and others in that same category. What this means now is that the U.S. military, in conjunction with the intelligence community and other partners in the Caribbean basin, can actively pursue the terrorist organizations that have been funneling money to the Maduro regime.
In that regard, do you see escalating beyond the sea strikes that we've seen to land strikes?
It's quite possible. It certainly is quite possible. At this stage, really, there's only two individuals who could control what's going to happen, in the near future, and that is Nicolas Maduro and President Trump. The options are rather clear for Nicolas Maduro. He's wanted as a fugitive. He's wanted in the Southern District of New York under criminal charges. He could face justice here in the United States. Another option may be to escape to a third country and try to eke out some sort of living that way. And the third option is a full-scale confrontation with the U.S. military. And the other party of this is obviously the President of the United States. He's the one who decides whether or not to execute military action against Venezuela.
So thinking a bit deeper from the Maduro perspective, he obviously succeeded Chavez. There were signs that there were elections and that he'd been elected, but then the previous election, by most observers, viewed as fraudulent and as illegitimate, yet he maintains power. So now the U.S. is designating terrorist organizations in his country, the Navy buildup in the Caribbean. What is his mindset right now if you're him?
If I'm him, I'd make sure not to go outdoors anytime soon. But having said that, I think what he needs to do is focus on an exit strategy, on an off ramp. Right? He's had that now for years. Both under the first Trump administration and then again under the Biden administration, they've attempted to deal with him in a number of different ways. Sadly, though, since for at least 2 decades now, we've sort of not focused on our own backyard. And what we've done is we've allowed adversarial interests like China, Russia, and Iran to use Venezuela as an aircraft carrier to then launch from there throughout the entire hemisphere. So what we're doing now is we're bringing that policy back in line again with reality. But if I was Maduro, I'd certainly try to think about how I could escape this, and with some semblance of safety and possibly get to live another day.
Yes, and I wonder if he was to make an exit. We saw Assad leave Syria. He went to Russia. Is that the type of existence you see for Maduro, or potentially with such a large bounty, are there people inside who might respond to that $50 million bounty, or is that more to just put a maximum pressure on him to just exit the way that Assad had done?
Right. So on the bounty issue, certainly that's a great payday for anyone who could deliver him. But we have to recognize, though, Maduro over the last decade has had an opportunity to thin the ranks of anyone that didn't toe the line or didn't, absolutely pledge their loyalty to him. And most of these folks are also very much involved in the same crimes that he's accused of and is involved in. Most of the generals who are members of Cartel de los Soles are the ones that benefit from the illegal drug trade that goes through their country and into the United States. As for the possibility of going to a third country, I think that's certainly in the realm of reality. I would look to see who would broker that. What other world leader, possibly in Europe, left-leaning sort of socialist leader may broach that subject with him and try to broker his exit from the country. But he'll always have that $50 million bounty on his head.
That's a big payday for somebody if it can be pulled off. Now, Rick, as we start to finish up, I just want to get your view on how far the Trump administration can go with their various tactics and tools now that the cartel has been designated a terrorist organization without having to go to Congress.
Right. So post 9/11, a number of laws that are in the books now allow the Office of the President to execute these sorts of missions and programs completely legally, as long as they brief the oversight committees of Congress and they work it through the National Security Council. Then that allows the government of the United States to go ahead and conduct military activity in a foreign country if that foreign country's leader isn't willing or supportive to stop terrorism. So that is the case here in Venezuela. To the extent that the administration will do that, well, we're already seeing that now with the boats in international waters. You could certainly walk that back to the ports. The U.S. military has a number of different options. If I was in the Pentagon right now, what I'd be doing is I'd have my order of battle already drawn up to decapitate the leadership of the Venezuelan military, and to make sure to mitigate any risks that could be used against the U.S. forces itself. So now you're looking at surface-to-air missiles, radar installations, airfields, wherever there's large concentrations of armored vehicles, those sorts of steps to send a much stronger message to the Venezuelan military that supporting Maduro isn't a wise choice.
Rick De La Torre, CEO and founder of Tower Strategy, thanks for your observations this morning.
Thank you.
And the Trump administration is moving to designate certain chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood as well as foreign terrorist organizations. President Trump signed an executive order yesterday. The Muslim Brotherhood was founded in Egypt in 1928. It has a transnational network with chapters across the Middle East, in Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt. In his order, Trump said that the Muslim Brotherhood engages in and supports violence that harms U.S. citizens and U.S. interests. The group has worked with Hamas and Hezbollah terror groups in the aftermath of the October 7th attacks on Israel. Trump said such activities threaten Americans as well as U.S. partners in the region. The president is asking the Secretary of State and the Treasury Secretary to begin the designation process, and that move would bring sanctions against the Islamist group.
The U.S. is ending temporary protected status for Burmese nationals, citing improvements in the country's stability and governance. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said yesterday that Burma, also known as Myanmar, has ended its state of emergency, is planning free and fair elections, and has established successful ceasefire agreements. Roughly 3,000 Burmese nationals now have until January 26th to return, in line with Homeland Security's 60-day transition period. The DHS said conditions no longer meet the standards for temporary protected status and determined that extending protections is not in the national interest. Human Rights Watch and other groups are criticizing the move, warning that Burma remains unstable and that planned elections are fraudulent. The decision reverses earlier extensions granted after Burma's 2021 military coup, which left the country in civil conflict. Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. The White House Christmas tree has arrived in Washington, D.C. for the 2025 holiday season.
Monday marked the official kickoff to Christmas time at the White House.
First Lady Melania Trump was there to receive the tree delivered on a Clydesdale drawn carriage.
He was selected from a tree farm in Sidney, Michigan, and it'll become the centerpiece of the Blue Room on the state floor of the White House.
And the White House Historical Association and a nonprofit have teamed up to create a Christmas ornament commemorating America's 250th birthday.
Creators say the piece marks an opportunity to reflect on our nation's history and bring the country together. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more.
This limited edition handcrafted ornament features the Declaration of Independence on one side and an America 250 logo with the White House on the other. The country's founding document marked the birth of the nation and independence from Great Britain on July 4, 1776. Organization American 250 collaborated with the White House Historical Association to create the celebratory 24-karat gold-plated decoration.
And that it's a part of this beautiful heirloom ornament, I think is really special. And so we could have taken a lot of different symbolism. We talked about lots of different ideas. But at the end of the day, the anniversary is the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
The White House Historical Association has sold a popular Christmas tree ornament honoring a president or a key White House anniversary since 1981. More than 1 million of those ornaments are now sold every year.
I think something that's so special personally about this year's ornament is that it's so much more than just that it's a symbol of truly this unity that we're trying to strive for.
The ornament is available for $26.95. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And proceeds for that ornament go towards the supporting the White House Historical Association and its mission to promote understanding and preservation of American history related to the Executive Mansion.
Oh, that's beautiful. And what a great theme for this year's ornament, of course, citing the anniversary. I mean, what a buildup, right? By the time we get to July 4th, it's going to be like nothing we've seen in quite some time.
That's true. And there is another Christmas tree ornament, of course, just the regular one that comes out each year from the White House itself. So you got a couple of options there.
There you go.
That one's also beautiful.
Get one, get them all, right?
Yeah. Okay, and it's a luxury getaway for two special turkeys named Gobble and Waddle.
That's right. For Gobble and Waddle, they're both set to receive presidential pardons, which is an annual tradition ahead of Thanksgiving.
The presidential turkeys are soaking up hotel life at the Willard Hotel ahead of their big White House debut.
Oh, look at them enjoying that spa treatment. Now, they've been supplied by Butterball, one of the nation's largest poultry producers. Their names were supposed to be a secret till yesterday, but Butterball's CEO says in classic DC fashion that there was a bit of a leak. Now, the First Lady's office is getting voters involved. She's urging the country to text their vote for their preference for either Gobble or for Waddle.
This Thanksgiving tradition goes way back. In 1947, President Truman received a live turkey from the National Turkey Federation.
And that continued until 1989, when President George Herbert Walker Bush, or Bush 1, officially pardoned the bird instead of eating it, and he sent it to live on a children's farm. Gobble and Waddle will receive their pardon from President Trump at 2 p.m. Eastern today. It's sure to be a lighthearted moment, something that I think people look forward to every year amidst all of the partisan politics as usual. It's a moment to kind of have a laugh, have a, kind of a silly moment of lightness and silliness at the White House. And as the package said, it goes back all the way to Truman, but apparently even Lincoln did something of the sort. And there was an iconic moment with JFK when he was presented with a turkey and he jokingly said, "Let's let this one grow a bit." And so they read headlines that said pardon, and I think that's when the thing picked up steam. And of course, George Herbert Walker Bush gave the first official pardon. But it was Barack Obama who actually was known for his dad jokes that he would make while giving the official pardon. And he had some real good ones. He would say stuff like, no foul play, bad hair days, and of course his daughters there would groan as he would enjoy making those embarrassing comments to them, just soaking up in the dadness of the moment.
Classic dad jokes, you gotta have them.
There were some real funny names though. There was Mac and Cheese under Barack Obama, Honest and Abe, Tater and Tot, Popcorn and Caramel, and Apple and Cider. And some other funny ones are Marshmallow and Yam, Liberty and Freedom under George W. Bush, and under President Trump in 17, Drumstick and Wishbone.
So, I mean, you get to text your vote for which turkey, but they're both being pardoned. So I wonder what comes next once the vote is in.
Maybe that one gets the better spa treatments than
probably.
the other.
Okay, gets to live out its life with a little more class, I guess.
Yeah. It's they get the crown, I guess you could say. So, anyhow, we're gonna have to end it here. But if you have any feedback on our show, or if there's something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com. We would love to hear from you.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. I'm Stephanie Cox.
I'm Gary Dunst. We'll see you soon.